Arvon Paasikivi-seuralaiset ja muu yleisö, myös yleisö siellä linjojen takana. I will warmly welcome Mr. Papuashvili, Your Honor, Excellency, Georgia's Parliament Speaker. You are very welcome to here in Finland to have a speech about current situation in this your area and in globally. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and pleasure to be here today and speak before you about Georgia and its irreversible European path. First of all, I would like to express gratitude for a warm reception, hospitality, and remarkably interesting and meaningful conversation we had at the Finnish government and the parliament. Paying the visit to Finland this year, as we celebrate the 13th anniversary since the establishment of diplomatic relations, is symbolic and especially valuable. Cooperation between our countries has been based on common European values and support for the rules-based international order. The Finnish nation's historic fight for freedom of choice and democracy, as well as Finland's model of the welfare state, serve as an inspiration for shaping Georgia's European statecraft. The history of Georgia is also full of wars. Our ancestors have demonstrated bravery, self-sacrifice, and dedication to fight for independence and liberty, and preserve our country along with its rich culture and traditions. War in Ukraine has not started in 2022 in Ukraine, and it will not end there if Russia is left properly unanswered by the West again. Georgia also fought with Russia in the 90s and in 2008 for independence and liberty. Moreover, the history of Georgia's ties with Russia encapsulates many tragic events, including losing statehood, annexation and Sovietization, massive repression, desecration of our churches and spirituality, attempt to suppress identity and values. Thus, we perfectly understand what Ukrainians feel. The Russian invasion of Ukraine brings back painful memories, especially as Russian occupation troops remain stationed in Georgia's two historic regions of Abkhazia and Tkhinvali. Despite all odds, Georgia has been fighting since the very first days of regaining independence and has always emerged as a democratic state. Georgia has been in a transition and thus challenges remain. However, Georgia's progress has been tremendous. Popular support for Georgia's European and Euro-Atlantic aspirations are now explicitly written into Georgia's constitution. As a result of the constitutional reform that turned my country into a full-fledged European-style parliamentary democracy. By signing the EU-Georgia Association Agreement in 2014, Georgia has upgraded its relations with the European Union to qualitatively new level, and since then has launched ambitious European integration reform agenda across all sectors to further advance political association and economic integration with the European Union. Up until today, Georgia has implemented up to 45% of the association agreement commitments. Georgia's democratic resilience has been demonstrated by the state institutions' ability to cope with the post-2020 election political turbulence, manage the COVID-19 pandemic, and most recently navigate the catastrophic regional upheavals caused by another war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and doing so without sacrificing its core democratic practices. In the past decade, Georgia proved itself to be a valued and reliable partner with its responsible foreign and security policy, which helped to maintain stability in Caucasus and broader region. We showed our dedication in Iraq, Afghanistan, Mali, Central African Republic, Kosovo, and elsewhere wherever needed and called for by our European partners. A memorial graveyard of fallen soldiers in Tbilisi, as well as meeting with their daughters, sons, family members, remind us the high price Georgia paid for our international partners and the global peace. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to outline that at this moment we are not talking about immediate membership, but granting a candidate status to Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova. While becoming a member state may take time and there is a demanding process of further reforms and negotiations, the European Union must send the right signal now to overwhelming pro-EU associated trio countries by granting a well-deserved candidate status. It will have the potential to provide people with a cause to rely behind and the reassurance that in these uncertain times, a better future is on the horizon. Geopolitics triggered the applications. Therefore, the European Union should take geopolitical decision while granting a candidate status. If the European Union does not hold the line now, the Moscow might interpret it as a green light for more aggressive actions. Not granting an European Union candidate status to Georgia and two other countries will leave Georgia and all trio member countries dynamically developing democracy exposed and dangerously vulnerable in an otherwise turbulent region. Europeanization and democratization have been closely interlinked, and granting a candidate status to Georgia will have a transformative effect and stand as a drive for further democratic reforms. Therefore, it is a moment of truth for the European Union and credibility and legitimacy of its international actorness. Being at this strategic juncture, the Union should demonstrate its long-term interest toward the region by granting a candidate status to Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. This will be a right historical decision that will allow these three pro-Western countries to get closer to the space which they truly belong to. Thank you.
Yes, we shall stay here.
Okay.
Thank you for a very interesting speech. I was Prime Minister at 2019. We have much discussions in the European Commission, with European Commission, European Council about new member states. And I think that Finland is one of those who is most likely to have this kind of new countries into European Union. And as you say, there is much work to do too for we reach that situation, but it is on the Eurasia continent, it's very important for have this kind of discussion. How do you see this situation in Ukraine on your area deeply?
Yeah, actually we hear nowadays that it was maybe hard to predict that Russia's aggression will happen in Ukraine. But on the other hand, if you look the developments back in 2014 in Crimea, Ukraine, back in 2008 in Georgia, back in 90s, and generally the pattern of international politics or how Russia makes its international politics, I think we would agree that this aggression could be predicted. But now we are there, and now the question is, what should be the answer? And at least now, I think we all should also realize that the lack of the clarity in answers in 2014, in 2008, brought Russia to that point and brought the whole world and especially Europe to 21st February 2022. Therefore, we see what are the possible answers and possible ways which could work in this case, and one of them is the application of these three countries: Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. Now it's like literally a matter of days to decide, and matter of days to take a historic step and to not to repeat the mistakes from 2014 and 2008. The same goes to the NATO membership and aspiration of, in this case, of Ukraine and Georgia, but of course Finland. And also there we have experience from back to 2008 Bucharest summit, where on the one hand we had a decision of the summit that Georgia and Ukraine will become a member of NATO, but on the other hand we did not get any clear way and path for how we can get the membership in NATO. So I think it's important now, seeing these two processes like EU membership or EU application, NATO application, I think it's important that Brussels 2022 Brussels not repeat the mistake of Bucharest 2008. As for the security situation, which of course the aggression of Russia against Ukraine creates also for the whole region, and in this case also for Georgia. Of course, many of you are aware that the Georgia is a country with 20% occupied territories by Russia, up to 10,000 Russian soldiers on Georgian soil, and literally a couple of 100 meters from the highway with the occupation line and Russian soldiers beyond this line or on this line. So, of course, these risks and threats are imminent, and we feel it, and the citizens who are living along the occupation line, they feel it, that they are captured, they are kidnapped, and it's a daily challenge for the Georgian government. And especially, therefore, solidarity and support from Western countries is much needed in this hard time.
How do you see the relations between Ukraine, between Turkey and Russia now, and what is your point of view to Turkey?
As for the Turkey's position, and when we speak about the region, of course, and Georgia is always has a good relations with Turkey or Azerbaijan, and Armenia. Only neighbor we have not so good relation is Russia, actually, and it's also not our fault. As for the Turkey, we of course for us the most important issue is that the Turkey, as a NATO member country, is on our border, and this is one of the arguments for us for accessing the NATO and being a NATO member country. For the Turkey, or the relationship between Turkey and Russia, it has also its historical explanations and arguments back in the 19th century and beyond. But we see that Turkey is also trying to play its role in the region. And in this case, it could be differently explained, but as from our perspective, we are actually welcoming the positions Turkey has as for Georgia's aspirations towards NATO and generally in the region.
How much has this situation in Ukraine, the invasion from Russia, improved to your economy and your inside, or also in your society now? The situation, the invasion to Ukraine from Russia, how it has improved to your society?
Of course, it has a general impact in the world economy, and I think every country feels it, and this is more or less the same for Georgia. By the way, Georgia is one of the countries who has a less dependence as for the energy sector from Russia. Just 6% of gas is imported from Russia. So from this perspective, actually, the dependence of Georgian economy from Russia's economy is not so high as for other countries in Europe. Just to give you some figures about the economic ties with Russia, and also having in mind then the impact, the total trade turnover between Georgia and Russia is $1.5 billion, which is quite a small amount from the European perspective. As for the economic development, and for the trade relations with Russia, it's mainly from Georgian side. It's mainly agricultural products, and as I mentioned, we have not so big dependence as for the energy supply from Russian side, and therefore, on that matter, they had not really a huge impact on Georgia.
Yeah. Now it's possible for audience to ask. Yes, there is.
Kiitos. Paula Kokkonen, former member of the Finnish Parliament. You said that there is an invasion of Russia. Did you refer to Abkhazia? And could you develop a bit of the question of Abkhazia? How can it be solved? And what is the time reference, if you may? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, the last 30 years of relation between Georgia and Russia, it's a history of struggle, fight, etc. But not only in Abkhazia, but Tskhinvali region. And most recently, in 2008, it started in Tskhinvali region, and the party in Abkhazia was also involved in it. Nowadays, these two regions are officially occupied. Before 2008, Russia tried to act as if it was some kind of mediator or some kind of peacekeeper. But after 2008, of course, it's now officially an occupation. There's one risk. Of course, we see that Russia changes policy of occupation to policy of annexation, and which is, of course, a threat for Georgia. But as for the regions, Abkhazia and Tskhinvali region, and the relation with the people living there, Georgia had many times declared that the only way to regain the territorial integrity is a peaceful way. And therefore, our policy and the application to the EU is a part of this policy to show to our citizens in Abkhazia and in Tskhinvali region that Georgia offers more prosperous, more progressive, and more development-oriented society and statehood. So this is a long way, but this is the only right way. We had in the past the military conflict, let's say so, and for the future, it's important that this long, but the only right way is held, and that we go this way.
Our ambassador, have you something to ask?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Could you maybe elaborate a bit more the kind of the plan B, should you have one, in case of the variant positions that the European Council or the Commission should have on the trio accession plans?
Yeah. Yeah. As I mentioned in my speech. Actually, to my understanding and my position would be that there are two criteria the European Council can take a decision on granting the candidate status. One is on merit, and then there we have a lot to present, be it inside the association trio or even beyond it, and having also in mind the comparison with other candidate countries. There are studies on how the countries, what is the progress of the countries by implementing the association agreement made by Brussels-based institutions like CEPS, for example. And in this comparison, Georgia is leader in associated trio in all criteria, rule of law and sectoral, etc., in implementing the association agreement. And they have also made a comparison with the candidate countries from Balkan states, and in some aspects, Georgia is even in a better position than some of the candidate countries. And moreover, if we take another dimensions of comparison, and which are made by different institutions, as an example, corruption perception index made by Transparency International. According to the recent index, corruption perception index, published by Transparency International, Georgia is on place 45th on the list, and ahead on up to 9 EU member countries. If we take Doing Business Index from World Bank, Georgia is, if I'm right, it's on place 7 on the list. So if if the criteria is based on merits, then Georgia deserves to get the candidate status. And then is another dimension which I mentioned. It's a geopolitical dimension, and I underlined it because even the position of my government was, and we had it, and still a part of our electoral program was to apply for the membership in 2024. So it was one of the, let's say, promises to the citizens back in 2020 before parliamentary elections to prepare the country for the application in 2024. But the aggression of Russia against Ukraine and the changed geopolitical situation changed also the attitude of European Union, and it was European Union who opened the possibility for the application. We know that normally to develop a questionnaire for the country needs several weeks or months. In this case, it took several days. We all know that the time the countries have to answer the questions are months or even years. In this case, we were asked to deliver our answers in 4 weeks, and we did it. And the explanation is geopolitics, and because it was geopolitical decision from European Union to open this possibility for not fast track for the membership, but fast track for the candidate status, maybe, or fast bureaucracy. Let's formulate it in that way. And I think that because the decision to open this possibility and to offer to apply for the candidate status was based on geopolitics, also the decision on granting the candidate status should be based on geopolitics. You know, of course, there is a discussion and will be discussion about whether the countries are prepared. But there should be a question: prepared for what? If we are speaking about from the perspective whether the countries are prepared for the membership, of course not. None of the countries prepared. No, Georgia, Ukraine, or Moldova. None of these countries prepared for the membership. But we are now speaking not about the membership, but on the candidate status. Of course, we understand that the candidate means per definition that someone is not prepared and should be prepared and supported on this way. And of course, we and my government understand this quite well, that to become a member of European Union, a country should be fully in line with Copenhagen criteria, fully implement and approximate the institutions and legal system to the European legal system and EU acquis. So this is the next step which should be taken. Now it's about the candidate status. So the answer on the question would be, I would really hope that no plan B will be needed, because it has a technical, political, and emotional side. Technically speaking, I just described that Georgia is advanced in many areas, which is needed to get the candidate status. Politically, I think that I don't think that I have to explain how important it is to send the signal of solidarity to the Georgian people and to send the signal of resistance to Russia. And emotionally, this is something what Georgian people were fighting for, waiting for, working for, and hoping for many decades already, if not many centuries. To come back to the European family, where we think we were co-creators of the European culture, where we think we, in the present, are with all instruments we have, with being ally in NATO alliance, without being ally actually, but being in all hotspots of this world, to support our NATO allies, to be together with European Union on security issues in Africa, Mali. So this is at least the attitude or the hopes we have that we will not need a plan B. But if all in all, at the end of the day, we are looking at our country, at our citizens, and we do the things not because not for being a member of one or another. We do it because to improve the life of our citizens, to improve the quality of life, to bring the welfare and to bring the prosperity to our nation. So this is actually the number one aim. And again, I would hope that no plan B will be needed.
If I ask so, that is it possible to describe what is the strongest issue, reason for the membership or candidacy to EU? Is it security? Is it economical, cultural, values, or what is the main reason? Could you describe?
Especially in last months, we saw that it's a choice based on values, choice which part of civilization, country or nation want to belong to. And this is the choice which Georgians, which was made in Georgia or by Georgians, as I mentioned, for many years. And even if we take now the figures about how big is the support of the EU membership or candidate status, NATO membership, is more than 80%, according to all polls made from different institutions. More than 80% constantly during all these years support Georgia's EU membership, Georgia's NATO membership. It was even before our independence in 90s, when the movement for the independence and freedom started, but was more active, let's say, in 80s. that already there at that time, at that time it was NATO and NATO security umbrella, which was one of the goals that nation had actually. It was discussed between the people at that time. So, I mean, the emotional part is to come back to the European family. By the way, the oldest European was found in Georgia. Second oldest person, second oldest human on the world. So the oldest one was found in Ethiopia, as I know, and the second oldest and the oldest in Europe in Georgia. And by the way, the oldest wine, chemicals were found also in Georgia, dated with 8,000 years old. Some kind of rest of the wine. So, and this is actually the feeling our people live with, that we are not only a part, and we do not strive to come to, but to come back to the European family. And of course, this emotional part, but of course, the way of living and economic welfare and freedom, and these are all the words you associate with Europe in the meaning of European Union.
That's very good. Yes, please. Wait a minute. Microphone coming.
Now when Abkhazia and South Ossetia are under Russian rule, I'd like to ask you what percentage of the people stayed there when these territories were lost, and how are these people treated, and can they travel, and how do they keep?
Yeah. Thank you. As you are maybe aware, in 90s, when there was a war, and I mentioned also that the military confrontation with Russia started in 90s in Georgia. There was ethnic cleansing in Abkhazia and in Trinvali region, where the Georgian population was forced to leave the territories. We got up to more than 300,000 internally displaced people after this ethnic cleansing. And there are, as for the ethnic composition in Abkhazia, there are not so many Georgians ethnically. But also it's not easy for Abkhaz people, and this is also something where the problem of ethnic identity is also one of the issue in these territories, be it in Abkhazia or in Trinvali region. Of course, when you speak about occupied territories, the terms like the human rights and freedom of movement and freedom of have schools in the native language, etc. These are non-existent or relative terms, and therefore, of course, all these freedoms are not provided there in the manner it should be provided. There are, I mentioned that in Trinvali region, in the middle of Georgia, along the occupation line, the people living there, they are constantly under threat to be kidnapped, and it takes then several weeks and months for Georgian government to somehow arrange that the people are freed. So these are the gray zones with the limited possibility to implement the human rights. As an example, as already mentioned, in Abkhazia, the Georgian schools are closed. You cannot learn or go in schools and have a lesson in Georgian language, which is also, of course, a problem for the ethnically Georgian population there. Yeah, as I mentioned, it's of course a closed gray zone with no free movement possibilities and other problematic issues which are connected with the status of being occupied territory.
Could I ask some question? I've discussed with some years ago quite much with Albanian, Northern Macedonia, and Montenegro's prime ministers about their situation, the geopolitical situation, and they said that there are very many interests from China's side, from Russia, for Turkey, and especially while they are interesting themselves of European Union. Have you had that kind of interest from China's side, or is there infrastructure building or something like that?
Generally, so historically, but also now, Georgia was on crossroad between Europe and Asia. It was part of the so-called Silk Road, and this is the role Georgia is trying still to play. And therefore, many interests, also historically, but not also in the present, many countries has an interest in Georgia. Of course, as for the infrastructural projects and other spheres and sectors of economy, we are open economy and therefore have a cooperation with all interesting countries. And Georgia, due to the economic collapse in 90s and due to the steel, with the economy which is still not on the level it should be, actually, is dependent from foreign investments. So therefore, of course, the Georgian economy is open for the investments. As for the China or Chinese companies, they are active in infrastructure, building roads in Georgia, but as for there are also the free trade agreement with China. Actually, Georgia is one of the countries who has a free trade agreement with China, with European Union, which also is quite preferable or quite good economic, brings us in a good economic situation. So more or less also the same with Turkey, actually. As I mentioned, as for the economy, Georgia is open economy, and we actually, our challenge is to attract investments, and therefore any investment is welcomed.
Okay, now we have time for one question, if there is some questions. He has a very tight timetable. You have been in Norway and
Denmark, now Finland, and tomorrow we will fly to Sweden.
And tonight you have also a dinner with our Friends Society from our parliament.
Yeah. So as for the trip, it's for me it's the first time in Finland. It's actually the first time in Nordic countries. Although I traveled a lot as a private person, actually, but somehow I didn't manage to be in this part of the world. And now in 1 week, we managed to be in Norway, in Denmark, in Finland, now in Sweden, and one of the messages we are trying to deliver shortly before the awaited decision of the European Council is the message that now is the moment of truth. Now is the time and moment when the people of Georgia, Ukraine and Moldova should get a message of solidarity. And the message of solidarity would be not just to open the door, but also to say to the people a welcoming word, and this welcoming word would be granting a candidate status. So we all hope that that no plan B will be needed, and but at the same time we understand that this is just the beginning. This is the moment when the responsibility on our side will grow actually, and when it will get now serious about the development of democratic institutions and about the approximation of the institutions and legislation with the EU acquis. And this is this will be in any case something which we will enjoy to do, and it's an exercise which is something which will really give you also some emotional satisfaction. So please, please also pray for us that they pray for the European Council that it takes the right decision.
I'm sure that Finland is behind you when you are looking for your road to Europe back. Thank you very much,
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know you have busy. You need to leave.